Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Siphumelele Zondi with your technology and social media news. Today we are at Western Agricultural College in Moy River in KwaZulu-Natal, where their museum keeps some of the old technologies that people used to use. We'll find out a bit about them. It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you about the return of crypto adverts on Google. This is after Google had stopped them back in 2018. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up. We have details on how film is shown in 2021 and in the age of COVID-19. We also have details on an app that aims to help young content creators. And in our conversation, producer Lebo Mokomela chats about some of those challenges that women are still facing in the technology sector. Perhaps we can also find out about what some of the solutions are. Would you believe that typing started here with typewriters, much like this one, or when making payments, a machine like this one would be used? But things have evolved to computers nowadays, and you find that one machine can do all kinds of things. And some of those things are created at hackathons, like the one held by Empire Partner Foundation, and that hackathon took place recently. Let's meet Jasmine Mokwena, who is one of the people involved there.
So gender equality remains a major issue in the corporate world, and women remain significantly underrepresented in the corporate pipeline. Today, we are here at the Empire Foundation to meet up with Jasmine Mokwena from Alexandra, a woman in technology.
Women need to act as representation. They need to show other women out there that we can break the barriers. We can redefine ourselves in the tech industry, in any industry, really. So our role is to show other women that you can be confident, you can bring your talent, you can bring your skills, and you can walk around with the knowledge that you don't have to let your gender define you. You don't have to at all.
She leads the team that organizes hackathons.
The turnout is great. In most of our hackathons, we have about 100 to 200 applicants on a monthly basis on our online applications. And we choose depending on the applicants, we choose about from 20 to 40 applicants to take part in the hackathon. So at the hackathon, we've got all these young programmers, computer programmers from across our den, youth, to solve these issues. And it's mostly youth from disadvantaged backgrounds, because we need to give people chances.
Working in tech can require sacrifice, late nights, early mornings, and a never-ending commitment to sharpening your craft, she tells us.
Just last night, I was working till 8:30. I was working on my way home, actually, doing research, because there was an article that had to be submitted to one of our tech partners. So I had to finish that and submit it. The night before, I slept at 10, submitting. So yeah, there are some sacrifices that have to be made, but for me, I don't see it as a sacrifice, you know. It's like, if you love what you do, you see it as like an activity that you enjoy. You know, you don't see it as a sacrifice. You see it as a learning opportunity and a growth opportunity.
For Jasmine, the most rewarding part of her current role is seeing the impact of her team's efforts.
We've got women, young female youth coming in as well. And then we also have corporate guests that come, partners that we've partnered with, people that are supporting youth, older people that are supporting youth, which is what we love to see. So the turnout is always great. The vibe is always great. We've got state-of-the-art design, office designs. So it's a great environment. It's an ecosystem. Just, you know, working towards one goal, building Africa through technology.
She says while the work is exciting, challenging and extremely rewarding, she takes a great deal of pride in her role as a woman in tech.
Some of the challenges is the credit that is not given to women. A lot of credit goes to men, and even just by word of mouth, women are not recognized as much as they should be. And we need to change the narrative, the wording even that we use around saying that a certain industry is male dominated, So it's all about changing the narrative, changing the words we say, because those are the challenges that we face, women not being heard, women's ideas not being taken seriously, women being labeled with many, many different things that we are not.
I strongly believe that the increasing number of female role models will inspire the next generation of young girls to follow technology-based education.
So once upon a time, this is the type of camera that people would have used for stills. And then things evolved to a video camera much like this one. But this was for professionals in the film sector. And chances are not everybody would have access to making videos. But things then evolved to what we use nowadays. Everybody has a smartphone and everybody can then take their home videos with smartphones. So Snake Nation says they are there to help content creators with their new app. And content creators often use new technologies such as smartphones.
So we're really focused on helping to tap young creators of color into the creative economy as a means of alleviating youth unemployment and poverty. We do that in 3 ways. We do that through our college societies. We're on 52 campuses throughout Southern Africa, so South Africa. We're in Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini. And then as well, places. So we actually have relationships with what we call social studios, so places to work and create. One with Wits University in Johannesburg, and then with Georgia State University in Atlanta. And then in 2018, we acquired a property we call Black Unicorns, which is in Howe Bay, Cape Town. And that's a space that we own, and it's a live work space for creators of color and tech founders of color. Millennials are the earliest adopters of technology. They're the earliest, cultural influencers. And so, we really felt like it was important to tap into that group that has both a ton of influence, but is also, massive creators. We get up every day and we create on social media for free, which is why we talk about people, places, and platforms. The platform that we created, the Snake Nation app, is dedicated to bringing web monetization to that creative audience through social media. The way we look at our compensation is like a stack, right? And so on the one end, call it, the 95, 100% of the people that upload content to Snake Nation will receive what we call Venom, which is our cryptocurrency. And so it's a utility token that we've engineered to create value for social media activity. So likes, shares, post creation, that whole activity actually generates a value that lives in your wallet on the app. And so even when you talk about creating access for those that are unbanked, you don't need to have a bank account in order to receive payment. And we know that that's a big barrier to entry. But first, when people upload content to Snake Nation, it's very transparent, so terms and conditions there, which gives us the ability to license your content out on your behalf and share the revenue. We share revenue 50-50 with the creators on any licensing revenue we get. So we're very transparent in terms of our business model. But ultimately, Snake Nation is built on blockchain. And so blockchain, everybody doesn't really know, but it's basically the technology that is a distributed ledger technology. So every input, every time you make an upload to Snake Nation, it writes it on the blockchain, which means that it's immutable, it can't be changed. So we have a permanent record of when the content was created and by whom, by way of their wallet assignment, right? And so if you upload content, you're a creator, you upload content, you have your wallet. When you could go into your wallet, you can see that your post has been rewarded. And then every single engagement also lives in your wallet, date and timestamp. And that is also written in the blockchain. You can find us on the Play Store and in the App Store. So both, from a Google, Android standpoint and iOS.
Ekaya Multi-Art Center, or KCAP, in KwaMashu would normally be packed during the Durban International Film Festival, as it is one of the venues where screenings would take place. It wasn't so this year. Now, the Durban International Film Festival is the biggest international film festival that takes place annually on the African continent. But this year, things went online, and venues around Durban and here in KwaMashu were deserted. The film industry had to come up with some creative ways to get films to the public. In the beginning of 2021, cinema chain Ster Kinekor filed for business rescue. Even though many had stopped going to the cinema long before COVID-19 arrived, the pandemic and the lockdowns that came with it meant no one bought a ticket to see a picture show. Now they've turned to the old method of drive-through cinemas.
Internally, it gives us a gauge, both for ourselves and for the industry, of the propensity of people to come back to cinema and the hunger or lack thereof that's still out there for cinematic experiences.
Even though just a pilot project for now, it hasn't been packed. But Ster Kinekor hopes the old technology is just what could save them and cinemas all over the world.
I think this contributes a lot to what the outcome of the business rescue process could be, not only for us, but it also contributes a lot to what the future of cinema could be or could look like.
This is not unique to South Africa. Many countries all over the world are testing this idea.
We're limited and we cannot do audiences as we used to do, side by side. So we ask people to come in their cars, and behind us you see people in cars just about to start, 2 huge screens, about 100 cars.
But even long before COVID-19, people were already pirating movies on platforms that allowed them to access films illegally. Now, when watching films at the Durban International Film Festival or any other cinema really, you'd be seated on seats much like these ones next to strangers, people you don't really know. But we can't do that anymore, so that's why this experience had to go online. The Durban International Film Festival is Africa's largest annual film festival. It's the second year they've been online this year, and they say the second year has seen growth in ticket sales.
We were the first festival to go into the online space with the Time of the Writer Festival, and since then we've presented 7 other festivals in the online space. And of course, right at this very moment, we're presenting the 42nd edition of the Durban International Film Festival in the online space as a virtual festival.
But analysts feel that this online film festival experience can only be temporary and leaves many out of viewing movies.
When you look at the screening venues, most of them were closed because of the lockdowns, whereby people were not allowed to go even to cinemas. And I saw that most of the films, actually 100% of DIF was online this year. For people with the access to technology, it helped them a lot. But the reality, in KZN, was still trying to build a film industry.
When my children asked me, what was the scar in my arm? I wouldn't talk about my suffering and fight for survival.
In other countries, there are film festivals that are already planning physical events, as the online experiment, even though forced, hasn't been working fully.
We've had a very diverse audience from some of the most rural areas where people do have access to data. And of course, that is one of the greatest challenges of an online festival, is that although we make all our festivals free, because of the sponsorship that we get from the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission, there still is the question of data, that people need to have data in order to be able to access the festival.
Sundance in the United States of America has already said that they'll require a COVID-19 vaccination certificate when they meet again in 2022. These days, your washing machine makes a lot of work easy for you. You throw your clothes inside and then it washes them and dries them also. But in the olden days, you would have used a machine like this one to dry your clothes. It's quite heavy and you mostly need both hands in order for you to do that job. We found this one at the Western Agricultural College in Moy River. SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Now, it is Women's Month, but there are still a lot of challenges that women are facing in the technology sector. In this segment, producer Lebo Mokomela has a conversation with Nomonde White-Ndlovu, who is from Wired for Women, and she chats about some of these challenges and perhaps some triumphs too that women have made in the technology space.
We've been having this discussion for decades. Well, let me say not decades, but a little bit over a decade. And I saw in my research that in South Africa, the scale of female to male graduating from STEM-related degrees is still out of kilter. What do you suggest can be done to change this?
We actually do have a number of female graduates who we see graduating and moving into corporate spaces. The challenge then comes in, when you start reaching your middle management tier of careers, where we start losing a lot of females in that tier. And this could be linked to many different issues, right? And in most instances, we may choose to have children at your childbearing age, which might be in your 20s. And if you choose to do that more often than not, and I know I'm an example of this, and there's many females in the sector that I know too, where you may choose to want to prioritize your family. So the responsibility that we have as corporates is to create an enabling environment that will allow women to come back and be integrated into our organizations should they wish to come back after maternity leave. What this entails might be something so simplistic, but as an example, a mother's room that you could put in corporate spaces in case mothers who are coming back into the work environment want to, continue breastfeeding their children as an example. It's providing safe spaces for them to do so. I think some of the, advantages or things that the pandemic has done is moving us into remote working. So I think what that will also require is flexibility as it pertains to allowing people to choose when they can work, because ultimately it should come down to productivity and my delivery, not so much, the time I'm logged in where you're monitoring that.
What other things do you think that can help us as a country help young children, young girls especially, not be intimidated by STEM subjects or moving towards STEM careers?
I think we need to be intentional as it pertains to showing young girls what the sector does, showing them the great innovations that people come up with to solve real human issues. And I think once you show them what technology can do, that's only when you can actually get people interested in the sector. And it doesn't have to be, with old school coding. There's so many coding games that you can play with children to actually start introducing them to technology. The other issue though, Lebo, that I think we can't ignore, and I think it became glaringly obvious during the pandemic, was unfortunately a lot of our kids could not continue with school during lockdown regulations, right? What that exasperated and brought to mind was the fact that a lot of our kids don't have access to technology, unfortunately. So what that means is, how do I encourage young girls or young boys to want to be in the sector when they don't have opportunities to tinker and play around with technological tool sets from a young age? So that's something we need to actually start thinking about. One, it's making data easily accessible and giving all schools, whether it's in rural communities, whether it's in township communities, the same access to tools that you would get for children who are, let's call it, in Model C schools or private schools.
Obviously, at Wired for Women, you guys are an initiative that supports women and obviously open up opportunities for them and networking opportunities as well. So, but then in that sector, for working women in the sector, what are some of the challenges or lamentations you've heard from some of these women that are active players within this male-dominated field, which is the tech space?
Lebo, I alluded very briefly to this, but I don't think we have created an enabling environment for women. Specifically, when you navigate from being a graduate and then you grow into middle management sector. So when you want to choose to have or grow a family or have a family, right? That's going to, at some point, I have a gorgeous 6-year-old daughter as an example, but which meant that I would have gone on maternity leave at a point. When you come back, obviously your child doesn't just go on hold because you're going back to work. Now, when you get back to work, like I said, technology is a 24/7 organization and business, because things can go wrong at any time. And when they do, you need to jump on calls, you need to start like solving for those issues. But what that means is that we haven't always necessarily been intentional in creating, let's say, time frames that are suitable for different colleagues. What the COVID-19 pandemic has done is provide us with opportunities to move towards digital working solutions and working online, which has meant that we're more flexible in terms of, maybe me as Nomonde or you as Lebo deciding like what time can you actually be online and work, because now there's the whole triple shift, and the triple shift that exists currently, which became pervasive, is you are maybe like a mother partner to somebody. If you're married, and if you've got children, you've got children. With lockdown, what that has meant is that you are a teacher, you're a mother, you're a homemaker, you're all of these things, right? And there's no time off. On top of that, you may have a job that requires you to be on like all the time, because technology is an industry and sector that does that. So that in and of itself presents, different challenges to you.
So do you think that governments across the globe and in South Africa have some kind of responsibility in trying to help and push more women towards STEM-driven careers? I mean, we are now moving into the 4IR and moving into high tech, like, artificial intelligence. Do you think that it's some part of the responsibility falls onto the government to sort of give that nudge to women to come into the industry?
I think it's a joint responsibility. We can't just leave it to government to say this is how we solve for it. So it's a collective responsibility to get to a point where we are driving more young people, more young girls into being interested in STEM subjects. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and it wouldn't be fair to actually just make it a government issue necessarily. And I think if we look at technology level, there's innovation that's linked to it as well, and we don't often talk about innovation as well. But I think it's important to bring this to light in terms of the partnership that would be required between the public sector and government, in terms of trying to encourage young girls to actually take up STEM subjects, so that we can actually come up with some of the best innovators on the African continent.
Thank you so much, though, for being a part of our network. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, Lebo and Nomonde there, and hopefully some of those issues can be solved. Let's go to a quick break now. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, the house behind me and many others like it are from the World War II era, but they are now found here at Western Agricultural College in Moy River. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
A 19-year-old is paving the way for girls in STEM by setting the record for the youngest woman to fly solo around the world next month. Belgian Zara Rutherford sets off on her 32,000-mile journey in her bespoke Shark ultralight plane, the world's fastest microlight, on August.
So growing up, I didn't really see many female pilots or female computer scientists. Those are two of my passions, and it's quite discouraging when there's no one that can relate to you that does any of those things. So then I wanted to fly around the world, hopefully have other girls see me and think I'd love to fly one day.
The teenager will be funding the trip herself with the help of sponsors, and she hopes to complete the journey in around 2 to 3 months. And now in the USA, Uber Technologies reported widening losses even as trips and deliveries grew as driver incentives hit revenue at the ride-hail and food delivery company. Uber posted an adjusted $500 million second quarter loss before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization, a metric that excludes one-time costs including stock-based compensation, widening losses by nearly $150 million from the first quarter.
I mean, this was a disappointment specifically on the driver shortage and the impact that it's having on profitability for Uber. definitely a step back for the bulls.
The company also warned investors that uncertainty from the Delta variant of the coronavirus continues to impact visibility into recovery.
I'm told the hospital behind me is an Anglo-Boer war-era hospital. Now, coming back to today, Google has recently announced that crypto providers can now advertise their services only if they are regulated. They had initially stopped in 2018. Now, our Twitter poll this week is asking you if you think they should be doing this. Now, 17% of you say yes, you do agree that it's a good idea for crypto providers to be marketed. 55% of you, and that's the overwhelming majority, says no. And there is a further 28% of you who say you didn't know they had stopped. Maybe it's because of all those providers who say that they sell crypto on our social media pages when they actually do not really, and they're trying to scam people. And that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. From me, Siphumelele Zondi, right here at the Western Agricultural College in Moy River. Have a good one.